Hey, it's me, Hudson, and today we are looking at some canon Star Wars books, and the perfect place that if you've never read a Star Wars book before, this would be to jump in. I'm going to walk through all the different eras and different types of Star Wars fans, and hopefully we can find you a book that you're excited to read that will give you some new insight into one of your favorite eras. All the books we're going to be looking at today are canon, so that means they count in the Star Wars universe. The books that came before 2014 and Disney purchasing Star Wars no longer count and make sense in the timeline because the timeline kind of got all messed up. That it doesn't really matter. What you need to know is these books are the ones that matter moving forward. There is some exciting ones that came before it, but no longer are part of that main Star Wars story. I love Star Wars reading, and I know you may have just seen the films or seen the TV shows, but you're like, where should I start? And that's exactly what we're about to hop into. So let us get started. If you are a prequel fan, there is a prequel to The Phantom Menace called Master and Apprentice, and it's a really good novel and enjoyed it. It's about the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. You should definitely pick that one up. There's not a whole lot of content in the prequel era during this Disney bought Star Wars time that we're in right now, but this is one of definitely those books that you want to read. I won't be diving too much into these books because I don't want to reveal or spoil anything for you. So next, if you're a huge Clone Wars fan and it just wrapped up and you're super sad and you're missing the show because it was incredible, there is a book you have to read, Dark Disciple. I think it is maybe my favorite Star Wars book that's ever come out. I had just gotten my wisdom teeth when I read Dark Disciple, and I cried through half of it. I'm not sure if it was the wisdom teeth or if it was actually the book itself, but you should definitely check it out. It's taking 8 Clone Wars episodes that were supposed to appear in, I guess, season 6 or season 7 that were cut, and it was all smashed into a book. It's awesome. It's covering Quinlan Vos, Asajj Ventress. So much fun. Definitely check it out. It's a quick read, but it's awesome. So Disney has made a bunch of books that are kind of in this dark times following Revenge of the Sith before A New Hope. A decent number of novels in there. So we'll cover a couple of different aspects depending on what type of fan you are. So right following Revenge of the Sith, we have Lords of the Sith following Darth Vader and the Emperor's relationship. It's a solid book, but I do recommend that you've seen Clone Wars and Rebels if you read it, because there's a couple of tie-ins. If you're a Rebels fan, you gotta read A New Dawn. It is an awesome tie-in of Kanan and Hera's relationship, and it's a perfect way to get more out of that show, even though it's already over. If you have seen Rebels, and you want to get into Star Wars books in general that even reference back way to those original EU books that came out, the new Thrawn Trilogy is so good. I do recommend, though, that you have seen Rebels before you hop into the Thrawn Trilogy. It's Timothy Zahn. It's incredible. I don't want to say anything and spoil the experience, but if you know anything about Thrawn, he was one of those initial expanded universe characters that came out and has now been put into canon, so it's really exciting. For the original trilogy, it's a little bit more difficult. There's a couple of books there. Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad, I think, is the best bet to jump in here. It takes place right after episode 4 and is an awesome perspective from the Empire's side, what it feels like following the Death Star's destruction. It's really enjoyable. I would check it out. If you want to see something from the Rebels perspective, you can read Heir to the Jedi, which followas Luke after episode 4. I personally could not get into it because it's written in first person, thinking like Luke would think. Was able to read through the whole thing, but it wasn't super enjoyable, and I wasn't sure if it was just because it was written weird to me, but a lot of people I know say like, hey, it's a fun book, it's good, even though it's written in a style that I was not comfortable reading. But definitely, if you enjoy the OT, read Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad. You don't have to play the game to understand the book. The book exists on its own. It's awesome. Now we get to the sequel trilogy. I am not an expert here. I haven't read most of these books, primarily because this is not my era. I grew up with the prequel era. That's what I enjoy, the Clone Wars. But I do have a recommendation if you want to hop in. There's 2 books. You can either read the Rise of Skywalker novelization. It expands on a lot of exciting things that we saw in the movie and gives us more detail if you want kind of the backstory. If you want something that's not connected to the film, you can check out Resistance Reborn. I actually bought this book right before Episode 9 came out, and I was super excited because I thought it was going to be a direct tie-in. But Resistance Reborn is kind of a story in itself. It doesn't tie directly into Episode 9, and if you go in with that expectation, it can be a really fun and exciting book that takes place in the sequel trilogy, but don't expect it to be just the perfect prequel to The Rise of Skywalker, but it's a really enjoyable book still. So there is this Legends book that I love so much that I have to mention. It doesn't exist inside the current Star Wars timeline, meaning it's not canon, but it is awesome. I want them to make it canon. You got to read Darth Plagueis if you haven't. So if you're wanting to look at kind of the old Star Wars Legends books, read Darth Plagueis. It gives an awesome tie-in to the prequels, to the Emperor. It's an awesome book. Check it out. So that's it for this video. What Star Wars books do you recommend? Comment below and I'll check it out. Awesome. See y'all.